Most older men think a young woman's smile is kindness. It isn't. It's a test, a mask, a weapon. You felt it, she smiles, you lean closer, and in seconds you go from mysterious to needy. Inside, you fear she sees you as old, invisible, or just a wallet to pity. Machiavelli warned appearances are traps. A smile is never just attraction, it's curiosity, power, survival. In this video, I'll reveal the 6 dark reasons younger women smile at older men and how to read them before you lose control. If you're tired of being underestimated, this isn't advice, it's your turning point. Stay. Welcome to Simplify Success. 1. Her smile is a test of power. The moment an older man believes a young woman's smile is admiration, he is already disarmed. What he wants to see is desire. What she is often delivering is calculation. That smile is not a gift, it is a test, and every time you rush to embrace it, you show exactly what you fear she already suspects, that you are needy, aging, and desperate to prove you still matter. Alex was 36, divorced, living in Chicago, trying to convince himself that life was not passing him by. On a cold Saturday morning, he walked into a cafe filled with students and young professionals, the kind of place where he felt both curious eyes and silent judgment. At the corner table, a younger woman glanced up and smiled. To Alex, it felt like oxygen after years underwater. He leaned in, voice animated, quick to show he was still relevant, still sharp. He made a small joke, hoping to hold her attention. For a flicker of a second, it worked. Her eyes lingered, her mouth curved with intrigue. But then, as if a switch flipped, her smile hardened into politeness, her focus slid back to her phone. In that instant, Alex felt the same cold he knew too well, the cold of being invisible, the cold of being tolerated rather than wanted. It wasn't rejection, it was worse. It was confirmation of his deepest fear, that she saw him not as mysterious, but as predictable. Not as a man, but as a wallet, a placeholder, or a body growing irrelevant. His eagerness had betrayed him. What he thought was charm registered as need, what he thought was presence was surrender, and in less than a minute he went from possibility to pity. He walked out of that cafe not just embarrassed, but hollow. As if every scar of divorce and every doubt about his fading value had been silently exposed under the brightness of a stranger's smile. When was the last time her smile turned polite in the middle of your sentence and you felt the air go cold? Own it for a moment. I will show you the exact move that takes back the frame. Machiavelli would not have been surprised. He warned that appearances are traps, that power lies not in what is shown, but in what is withheld. A smile is not approval, it is reconnaissance. It is a probe, searching for cracks, testing whether you can remain composed under pressure. In the theater of desire, the man who reveals his hunger first is the one erased from the script. What comes next isn't kindness, it's the quiet pull of indifference. That is what unsettles her instincts and bends her curiosity. Not leaning in, not explaining, not scrambling to impress. Silence and composure are the currency that older men forget they own. In 30 seconds, you will see why holding your ground turns absence into gravity. He thought speed showed confidence. She saw dependence. He thought availability proved relevance. She saw weakness. Every older man who mistakes a smile for certainty ends up confirming the very judgment he dreads, that he is replaceable, easy, safe to ignore. Tonight, do nothing. Don't rush to answer her text. Don't lean across the table to prove your charm. Hold your ground. Let her wonder why you are not collapsing into her test. You will notice the tension shift. Not because she respects you yet, but because she no longer reads you as predictable. Mystery unsettles her far more than eagerness ever will. If you ignore this, you will keep turning her smiles into pity instead of power. The next part reveals why the man who does not need her becomes the man she cannot ignore. Skip it, and you'll stay trapped in the same cycle. Smiling back, leaning in, and watching her eyes go cold. 2. The aura of not needing her. The more you try to prove your worth, the faster it disappears. The harder you chase, the easier you are ignored. Older men feel this sting deeply. They give attention, they offer stability, they over-deliver, only to watch her eyes drift to the man who gives her nothing. What you thought was effort looks like need. What you thought was charm feels like surrender. Daniel was 40, a banker in Dallas, sitting at a work dinner that felt more like a performance. Around him, younger colleagues bragged about their bonuses, dropped jokes too loud, pulled out phones to show vacation photos. They leaned in, overselling every part of themselves, desperate to be noticed. Daniel didn't join. He sat back, listening, sipping his drink, speaking only when he had something worth saying. Across the table, a younger woman noticed. She glanced his way. No words, just a smile. It wasn't the grin of a fan. It was the quiet recognition that he wasn't dancing for her approval. For Daniel, the moment was sharp. He realized he hadn't earned her attention. He had withheld it. And that was exactly why she offered hers. He remembered nights when he texted first, when he explained himself too much, when he tried to stay relevant in a world that seemed to worship youth. Each time, the more he gave, the less he mattered. He felt invisible, like a man past his prime. That smile at the dinner table cut deeper than praise. It revealed a dark truth. His value was never in proving he could keep up. It was in showing he didn't need to. He thought attention required pursuit. She only noticed when he refused to flinch. Next time she looks over and says nothing, will you rush in or let the silence measure you? If you dare, I will show you how absence becomes pull. Indifference is gravity. What needs nothing attracts everything. Machiavelli would call this the silent law of power. The one who is not ruled by desire rules the room. Like a chessboard, the piece that doesn't move still controls the game. A smile doesn't crown the eager, it circles the man who withholds. And here is the part you must hold on to. What comes next isn't noise or flash. It is the quiet force of presence that turns absence into leverage. In 30 seconds, you'll see why her instincts search for safety, not excitement, and why that changes everything. He thought charm meant effort. She saw stillness as strength. He believed being visible required chasing. She noticed the one who didn't flinch. And in that pause, he became the only man in the room she could not ignore. Tonight, do less. Stop chasing her attention. Withdraw just one move. Say nothing when you would have explained. Wait instead of rushing. You will notice the shift, not because she respects you instantly, but because she cannot read you anymore. And when she cannot read you, she must reevaluate you. That is the moment power changes hands. If you miss this, you will keep exhausting yourself to prove worth, while she studies the man who withholds his. The next part reveals why her deepest instinct isn't beauty or charm. It is survival. Skip it and you will stay stuck, performing in a play that was never yours to direct. 3. The father wound instinct. The cruel moment is this. The smile you thought was desire was never desire. It was her survival instinct whispering, "Can this man keep me safe?" She is not drawn to charm. She is scanning for control. And the tragedy for many older men is that they mistake protection for approval, then wonder why attention fades the moment the danger passes. Elijah was 33, a personal trainer in Chicago. One night at a crowded neighborhood bar, the air grew sharp. Two men argued, voices rising, shoulders colliding, glass nearly slipped, a chair screeched across the floor, people froze. Elijah walked in from the side hallway, calm, not rushing. He placed a hand on one shoulder, looked into the other man's eyes and said quietly, "That's enough." The tone cut deeper than volume ever could. Within seconds the clash deflated. The men muttered and backed down. At a corner table, a younger woman had been pretending to scroll her phone, knuckles tight around her drink. She looked up, exhaled, and gave Elijah a small smile. Later, in the parking lot, she stopped him and said, "I felt safe when you walked in." Elijah drove home in silence, replaying the words. They weren't about attraction. They weren't about looks. They were about the calm he carried into chaos, and it stung, because for years he thought effort, charm, and performance won him notice. Yet the first time he said almost nothing, the smile came anyway. He remembered nights he tried harder, the quick texts, the endless humor, the restless need to prove he was still relevant in a world obsessed with youth. Every time he felt invisible, like age itself erased him. Tonight, the truth was cold. He wasn't invisible. He was being measured for something else. She didn't see wrinkles. She thought composure. He thought loyalty was leverage. When did you chase right after danger passed and confuse protection with approval? Be honest for once. I will explain why the power slipped. Machiavelli knew fear protects more reliably than love. In politics, in war, in desire, people place survival above sentiment. Women sense this long before they admit it. The smile is not applause. It is reconnaissance. In the theater of attraction, safety is the silent script, and the calm man owns the stage. What comes next is not romance. It is curiosity about your scars. In 30 seconds, you will see why her smile is not about your age. It is about what you have endured. He thought the smile praised his looks. She smiled at his calm, because calm is power. He thought emotion proved depth. She counted composure as security. And in that instant, the most attractive thing in the room was the man who refused to flinch. Do not prove safety with words. Show it in composure. Let silence carry the weight that speeches cannot. Tonight, when tension rises, lower your energy instead of raising it. Next, we uncover why it is not charm or beauty that draws her in, but the forbidden pull of your experience. The scars she cannot stop imagining. Miss this, and you will keep believing safety is weakness when it is her hidden trigger. The next part reveals why experience itself becomes her forbidden curiosity. Skip it, and you will keep hiding the very thing she secretly smiles about. 4. Curiosity about forbidden experience. Her smile is not a thank you, not a cue of simple attraction. It is a door she pretends she does not want to open. What draws her is not your charm today, it is the history you tried to bury. And every older man who believes age makes him invisible is blind to the truth that the scars he hides are the very shadows that make her linger. Kevin was 45, a consultant in Boston. At a business dinner, the table buzzed with small talk and shallow jokes. Younger men filled the space with stories of gyms, gadgets, and weekend trips, each trying too hard to sound relevant. Kevin stayed quiet, sipping wine, speaking only when asked. Across the table, a younger woman glanced at him. Her smile was not bright, it was probing. Minutes later, she leaned closer and asked, "Where have you traveled?" He mentioned a posting overseas, a conflict he had seen up close, then stopped. Her eyes did not move away. She asked again, softer, "What was it like?" It wasn't his suit or his silver hair that hooked her. It was the hint of forbidden stories no younger man could tell. Kevin felt the paradox cut him. For years he feared his age erased him. He dreaded being the man at the table, overlooked for fresher faces. Yet the one thing he thought disqualified him was the very thing she searched for. She didn't want cool, she wanted to feel the weight of experience that tested him, bent him, but did not break him. And the more he tried to perform as still young, the more invisible he became. He realized too late, his silence was more magnetic than his effort. He thought youth was currency, she treated scars as treasure. When did you overshare and watch her interest fade? Can you hold a closed door for 30 seconds? Say it, and I will teach you the hint and pause method. Curiosity is the currency of desire. Machiavelli would call it leverage. The mask of romance is thin, but the pull of mystery outlives beauty. The more scars you carry, the more she wonders what they cost. In the theater of attraction, the character with the hidden chapter is the one everyone keeps watching. What comes next is not about stories of adventure. It is about survival. In 30 seconds, you will see why her instincts lean towards stability over any six-pack, and why that changes everything. He thought age made him invisible. Instead, experience turned him into a puzzle she could not resist solving. He thought silence was emptiness. She read it as a locked door. And a locked door is always more tempting than one that swings open too easily. So do not overshare. Drop hints. Guard your stories with silence. Tonight, let her pull for more and let her imagination do the heavy lifting. You will notice the tension shift. She stops testing your surface because she is already searching for what you are not saying. That is the moment the balance tilts. Skip this and you will keep hiding the very edge she smiles about. The next part reveals why biology itself, not taste, not preference, pulls her toward the man who proves survival over display. Miss it, and you will keep sanding down the scars that make you unforgettable. 5. Evolutionary signal. Security over beauty. Her biology does not care about your jawline. It does not care about the gym selfies or the car you rented for the weekend. It only cares about whether you can survive storms. Attraction is not written in makeup and mirrors. It is written in the silent calculation of who will still be standing when everything collapses. And that is why the smile you think rewards your appearance may, in reality, be measuring your endurance. Mark was 38, a contractor in Houston. He had built his life with slow hands and hard work, fixing homes after floods, managing crews, paying bills on time. At a birthday gathering, younger men filled the backyard with noise. They flexed, flashed watches, told stories about wild weekends. They chased laughs like dogs chase cars. Mark sat near the grill, quiet, beer in hand, nodding when asked. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't sell himself. When the music dipped, a younger woman across the table looked at him. Her smile lingered, not on the flash of surface games, but on the calm weight of someone who had already endured. Mark felt the irony cut him. For years he carried the fear that his age made him invisible, that younger men owned the spotlight. He worried that his steady routines, work, home, bills, were boring. Yet in that moment, it was precisely his steadiness that drew attention. She was not curious about his biceps. She was reading the quiet confidence of survival. He realized what he once thought was a weakness, being predictable, being ordinary, was the very thing biology had wired her to trust. He thought beauty was the game. She saw stability as the prize. If you could message the version of you who kept polishing looks, what would you tell him? Be ruthless and I will rewrite it in a Machiavellian script you can live by. Machiavelli would not have been surprised. Power is not in the mask you wear for the crowd. It is in the fortress you build that no storm can take down. Biology rewards survival, not decoration. Desire is a negotiation and her smile is the contract being drafted. In the theater of attraction, the man who proves endurance rewrites the script. What comes next is not just survival, it is presence, the silent weapon that bends perception without a single word. In 30 seconds, you will see why silence itself speaks louder than performance. He believed shine would make him visible. She read steadiness as strength. He believed beauty gave him value. She saw survival as priceless. And in that single look, the loudest men became background noise, while the quiet one became the center of gravity. Do not fake flash. Do not scramble to compete with noise. Double down on stability. Pay attention to the habits that keep you grounded. When others rush to impress, choose to remain composed, you will notice the shift. She stops chasing decoration and starts studying foundation. You'll notice she stops testing you, not because she respects you instantly, but because she can no longer dismiss you. Miss this, and you will keep polishing looks while she smiles at the man who simply endures. The next part reveals why presence, the power that needs no words, silences a room more completely than beauty ever could. Skip it, and you will keep playing a game of appearances while someone else owns the reality. 6. The presence that silences the room. You expected applause when you performed. What you never expected was this cold reversal that the room respects the man who says nothing. The moment you start entertaining, value leaks. The moment you stop, air shifts. She is not smiling at your lines or your timing. She is smiling at the pressure that follows you in and settles everyone else down. That is not charm. That is command in disguise. Alex again. A weekend gathering in Seattle, living room lights low, a kitchen island stacked with glasses, music humming in the background. Younger men scroll phones, toss jokes, chase reactions that die as soon as they land. They speak over one another, laughter a little too loud, confidence just a little too thin. The door opens. Alex steps in without a word, phone away, shoulders calm, eyes steady. He greets the host, takes in the room, chooses a chair that faces the entry. He does not rush to greet the loudest voice. He does not lean for validation. He sits, breathes, and lets the noise measure itself against his quiet. A younger woman near the bookcase watches the contrast. Her smile appears, small and certain, not for the man with the best joke, but for the presence that just rearranged the room by existing. He notices how quickly the energy pivots. A question is directed toward him because he did not demand it. People begin to slow their rhythm to match his. The woman's eyes do not leave his face when others talk. Alex remembers every night he tried too hard to be interesting and watched attention slide off him like water. Tonight he does the opposite, and the room organizes around him. The punchline lands in his chest like a verdict that he spent years performing for a stage that only responds to gravity. Presence is power without words. Machiavelli would call it the rule that the prince who governs himself governs others. Silence is not emptiness, it is pressure that bends attention the way a planet bends light. In the theater of desire, the mask falls when the man who needs nothing arrives. What comes next is not charm, it is command. In 30 seconds, you will see how stillness tells a louder story than any speech, and why people move closer when you stop trying to be seen. He thought he had to perform. She smiled, because he did not. He believed noise proved confidence. She heard confidence in the way his quiet refused to beg. He spent years chasing eyes that would have landed on him the moment he became hard to move. Next time, stay grounded. Do not fill silence, let it work for you. Choose the seat that faces the door. Slow your breath, speak once, and allow the pause to complete the sentence. If doubt rises, remember that the room is already adjusting to your pace. You will notice people leaning in not to hear better, but to understand what you are not saying. This week, what boundary will you set in the room that proves you are hard to move? Say it, and I will give you the micro-routine to protect it. Do not stop here. The conclusion ties every smile into one strategy that turns tests into leverage and curiosity into pursuit. Miss it, and you will keep mistaking her signal for politeness, while the real game passes to the man who can hold a room without opening his mouth. This is where everything comes full circle. What you just heard was never about smiles alone. It was about power, the hidden game younger women play when they test, measure, and judge. You saw how mystery unsettles more than charm, how silence pulls more than words, how scars speak louder than youth. This isn't about being cold, it's about becoming untouchable. You don't need to chase to be chosen. You don't need to perform to be remembered. Presence, composure, and restraint are not weakness, they are weapons. One viewer, Michael, a 42-year-old engineer from New York, wrote to us. He said for years he tried to keep up with younger men, louder jokes, faster texts, desperate effort. It always ended the same: ignored, overlooked, dismissed. Then he listened, stopped chasing, and held back. At his next gathering, a younger woman smiled, not out of pity but out of curiosity. Today, he says, the moment I stopped proving myself was the moment I became undeniable. You could be next. Subscribe now, because the shift starts quietly, but it changes everything.